Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, and welcome to the Amateur Otaku podcast. How is everybody doing out there? I am Brandon Alvarado, the Scarlet Fan here, and I'm so excited to be back here at the Amateur Otaku to talk anime news, manga with you guys. We have a great show planned today for tonight's live stream, and of course, I'm joined with another member of the Amateur Otaku crew, Jamie. What's up?
Hey, nothing much. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, yes. So, guys, we have a great show for you guys. For the longest time in the pod, we've been talking about doing Vinland Saga, which is a show that was tucked away in the libraries of Amazon Prime Video for the longest time. I'm glad that not only Netflix got the rights to license and release season two on Netflix, but they were able to grab Vinland Saga season one, put it on Netflix, because I was able to finally see it, and a bunch of other people were able to finally see it. So we're gonna talk full spoilers, in-depth conversation of Vinland Saga season one, and Jamie and I have seen the first three episodes of Vinland Saga season two. So we're gonna talk a little bit about where Thorfinn's story is going. Now, but before we go into that, there were a couple of anime news that came out recently that we talked about as we were planning the show and found very interesting. And I think it's very interesting for everybody, not only because one of the shows that the articles or the news talked about is one of the shows that we've been covering that we've really been enjoying, but also because there's other shows that we haven't heard of that maybe is a show that you've been really looking forward to or that you're actively enjoying, and suddenly it's things are happening. So to start the show and get it out of the way, we're going to talk a little bit about news, which we normally don't do unless they're like super interesting. And apparently, a lot of animes are getting delayed during this winter season. Whether it's some people say it's like production meltdown or something happening with the studios and the producers. The official response from a lot of these production companies is that it's COVID related because there have been in the news. There's been a lot of COVID related outbreaks in Japan, and a lot of people have been getting sick because a lot of people think that COVID simply went away, but no, it's gonna. They always said that it was gonna be like the flu, that it will come up back. It will have surges every year, and like every other illness, it'll evolve, and it's crazy. So it being part of what's putting a wrench in the gears, it totally makes sense, and it's really sad. And I hope all those families get better, and this there's no tragedy that's prolonged because of all this going on. Um, but a lot of animes are being delayed. And Jamie, when we found out that a lot of animes were being delayed, the first one they announced was the one that we just been talking about
Yeah.
for we're almost 3 weeks now. When you heard that Nier is getting delayed, that we don't know, because that's the thing. Originally it was delayed, and they mentioned they're going to release the other three episodes. So I'm thinking that by January 28th, they're going to release the first three episodes again. So I'm assuming we're going to get the fourth one. But no, we have no idea when episode four is going to come out. When you heard this, how did you feel?
I was kind of distraught, not gonna lie, because
Yes,
this was
I
one of
believe you.
the anime. Oh, sorry.
No, I believe you.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was one of the anime that I was looking forward to watching to the most this season, probably just because of I guess like the cult following that Nier has, and me being like somewhat familiar, but not really. At least on my part, taking the initiative to really dive into that world. So I thought
Yeah,
this was going to be a great way for me to get an introduction to Nier and like really push me to go on to play some of the games because I've played like the Nier mobile game and I really enjoyed it and I like the storytelling there. So I figured this was going to be another fun experience. But unfortunately, it was delayed, and the I don't know, just the it's crazy that COVID is still affecting these productions, especially since like we're kind of under the impression that anime or at least just animation in general is worked on so far in advance. So I'm kind of
right.
wondering at what point did production just come to a halt and they had to come out with this announcement like, we have to postpone this because we don't know when the next time we're going to be able to work on this is, or we don't have like the staff to put out an episode every week, or however frequently they were doing it. So yeah, it's a big disappointment, but ultimately, the people behind the show are people. They do have families. They are trying to take care of themselves and live their best lives. So I wouldn't want this show to come out at the risk of them like potentially coming to some kind of harm. So
Right, like at the cost of other people. That would be very way too sinister of us as fans.
right,
We are
yeah,
not those fans. We just need to
no,
be good. And the best. And here's the other side. Like there's distraught, but also there's this sense of hope in it, in the sense that, for me at least, because the way I see it is, okay, so you're delaying it because you don't think it's ready. You don't think it's going to be at the quality that you want it to be, the quality you want to take it, right? And I don't know if
right,
you've seen episode 3 yet,
yep,
but
I
I
saw
had
it.
I had a chance to see it, and not to jump in, but uh, the story just takes off in
Yeah,
episode 3,
makes
and
it even more painful.
yes, and the animation is great. So you can tell they're really building something special and creating something
Right,
special. So it's one of those things that, yes, I would have preferred that maybe this was ready in advance where they can just release the shows. But like I was listening to someone on YouTube, which is very true. And even with HBO shows, like I had the privilege of some of my friends had the privilege of watching the show in advance. Like one of the biggest HBO shows right now was able to see them in advance. And one of the things that they were telling us is like, hey, this show is about to come out next week, and there's still stuff that is not finalized. There's
yeah,
still stuff that's not perfect, right? So in some cases, they're working on this show up to minutes before it releases.
hmm,
And I'm not surprised it's with anime as well. But like you said, we're in a world when most of the times animes come out every single week with almost no stop. I mean, we just came out of a phenomenal fall season where it was banger after banger after banger, right? So to get this big halt in production, it being affected like this, it hurts. But at the same
yeah,
time, take your time. Just give us more of what you were doing, like, because we don't want half-ass stuff either, right? Like,
hmm,
so hopefully it works out and everything's good. Now,
yeah,
Nier wasn't the only one that was affected by this. So there was a couple of other ones that they're also part of the Aniplex production network, like a lot of the studios that work with Aniplex. That's why a lot of people thought that it had to do specifically Aniplex, but we did find that there are other properties and other shows that have nothing to do with Aniplex that are also getting delayed, which
hmm,
makes the whole COVID argument very interesting and very real, because there are statistics, there are news talking about this. Um, and another one that was delayed was Unite Up, which is like a musical anime apparently, which apparently a lot of people were looking forward to. Ayagashi Triangle, which is another Aniplex anime, that one got delayed as well. The latest installment in the Fate series, which, by the way, this series is like so crowded and like it has so many shows. I have no idea where to start with this series. It's funny, when we started the Amateur Otaku, me and Isaac, back in the heyday, right? We talked about, hey, can we do Fate? And there's already like 10 different series on it. So like I have no idea. Have you ever seen the Fate series?
I've watched a little bit of, I believe, Fate Zero, and I think it's supposed to be like the prequel to everything that happens in the main series. But even watching that, I was like very confused, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll revisit this at a different time.
So
Like, I
so I
know it's supposed to be really good, but I was just very
right.
confused watching the first few episodes.
And it's funny how this one's called Fate Strange Fake. So like I have no idea what to think about it. But it's so crazy. You have to have a very complicated backstory for the prequel to not make sense. It's
Right.
like you have to
Yeah.
watch everything first to understand the prequel. Like that's not the way prequels are supposed to work. But Fate is a very beloved series because they keep making them, they keep writing mangas on it in that world. So that this got delayed as well, which was announced for summer 2023. And then the latest one that they announced was delayed was Kubo Won't Let Me Be Invisible. I've never heard of this one. Apparently, a lot of people were looking forward to this show. Do you have any knowledge of this show?
No, I'm not familiar with it. It's kind of same deal. I've heard like people are looking forward to it, but I
I
have
know it's a
not.
popular manga series. Like it has a couple of volumes on it,
Mm,
and like a lot of people dig it. So But yeah, a lot of stuff got delayed, and it's a little bit sad, that a lot of us that probably had all these shows that we were really looking forward to, and now we're gonna have to wait a little bit longer.
Right.
Um, but more than but here's what I love about anime though. Like there's the quantity of great stories and series that is out there. It's
Right.
so huge. So you can either be upset and be angry and just show everybody how angry you are, which again, it's outside of your control. It's not like you work for the company and like that your fellow animator is just slacking playing Galaga like the guy in the Avengers ship. Like no, it's like you have no control. So do this. Catch up with something else. Find something else to watch because there is something out there, which is it's there's something out there for everybody. Right? Grab a
Yeah.
book, damn it. Like-
Yeah. That too.
or
I
maybe play
know
the Near Automata game, right?
that is actually on my list. I'm like, you know what? Now that the show is not going, maybe I'll play the game. By the time it comes back, I can watch the show and maybe have like a different experience. But I
Yep.
definitely, I've taken a page out of Isaac's book and I started
Ooh.
watching Death Parade, and I actually really like it. I think I'm on like
Yes.
the eighth episode or something like that.
Yes.
So yeah, I've been enjoying that. I'm like, I needed some more anime in my life. So I'm like, if people have been talking about this one, I'll give it a shot.
Yes. No, and that anime in particular, I'm gonna put the link in the description. We covered it in our podcast a while ago. Death Parade is one of our favorite shows, and it's one of those shows that it has the most misleading opening song, but it also has some of the most touching and gruesome stories about the human condition. It's such a very interesting deep dive into people, and it has a great cast of characters. So definitely, I hope when you finish watching it, I want to know what the full the full idea how you feel about it because it is a great show. It is
Yeah,
such a great
definitely.
show.
Well,
Awesome, awesome. And if you guys have thoughts on Death Parade, let us know in the comments below. We got a comment. Ooh, Mr. Wolf pops in the chat and he says, "Before I go to bed again, I just want to mention that you guys rock. Also happy that you enjoy it, Jamie." Like he heard you in the distance. He heard you all the way in Sweden.
He's like, what? Death Parade? Death Parade? What?
It's like it's like he saw the Isaac signal in Sweden. They have it like in the mountains. Best most
Yeah.
misleading openings of all time. Well said, Mr. Wolf. Well said. So I have a question for you, Jamie. Which to me, it's the one thing that came to mind when we heard about all of these delays. Yes, where a lot of them like everyone was talking. Oh, it's the same company. Oh, same studios. Perfect. But we know of a studio that lately, since the end of last year, everybody kept hearing that they keep grabbing more and more projects, keep grabbing more and more projects. It's become a meme at this point. Like, we have no idea how the studio can continue to grab projects. So, I have a question. Should we be worried about Mappa? And the biggest reason I say is because not only are they releasing Vinland Saga Season 2 on Netflix weekly, which is not a thing that Netflix does, but I would assume that maybe that's part of their deal, which is why they're getting weekly release on episodes, which I'm kind of enjoying because it keeps
Hmm.
the conversation alive.
Yeah.
But we know they're supposed to drop Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 or later this year. They're supposed to drop Attack on Titan, the final season, Part 3, Part 1, damn it, in March. They're working on One Punch Man 3, Season 3, which is probably not going to drop till probably 2024 maybe. But, and there's this other one that I have no idea what the name of that show is. Is that Hell's Paradise? I think
I
that's Hell's
think
Paradise.
so.
I think
Yeah.
that's Hell's Paradise. But, like, they're working on all these shows. Should we be worried? What do you think? Like, do you think that they're going to be affected in a way where we're going to start here? Like, they're going to be the next ones to start going, we're going to delay a couple of things.
Um, I'm gonna be hopeful and say that I don't think they're going to start delaying projects. Just because with this past year, it seems like they've done a really great job of like managing their time and their resources to make sure they deliver like series episodes week by week on time. At least as far as I know. Like, you can include breaks into that as like, just trying to
Right.
recoup and all that, but that's not like a delay, that's not like a indefinite delay. We don't know when this is coming back. It's kind of just like, a holiday or whatever it may be, which that's normal for people to take.
Right.
So I think they've done a really good job of managing the projects that they've taken on so far. And I'm hoping that they would not try to stretch themselves thin, even though they have been taking on a lot of projects. But we've seen that they've been able to
You
do
mean
it.
any more? Is that what you're
I
trying
mean,
to say?
I don't, I, I'm curious to see if like they've expanded a bunch since taking on a bunch of these projects, just so that way they can keep up with everything, or if
Yeah.
they have like some kind of outsourcing method or whatever it may be. Um, but I'm thinking like at this point they know what they're doing, and they are just trying to capitalize on like everything that they've done so far, and just trying to be a really dominant studio in the anime world, which so far they have been. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping they continue to keep up the pace. They don't have to do as much as they've been doing, but I'm hoping that whatever they decide to do, they do
It,
it well.
yeah, I wonder. Like, it makes you think. Like, because I didn't do enough research on this. I'm gonna be honest, but it makes me think like Aniplex is just a production company, so it doesn't mean that just like Aniplex was for some of the shows that were delayed was like the connecting tissue, right? But a
Hmm.
lot of these studios were different. They were not the same studio. They were just working with Aniplex to put these things out there, right?
Right.
Um, MAPPA is the art studio and the production company as well. So they're doing this themselves. So I don't know if it's a matter of like discipline or ethic or I mean, look at me talking about discipline about Japanese people. What the hell am I? What is my problem? It's Bushido. No, that's bad. But it's like you're right. Like they've been very good. Like these are not like as soon as like for example, one of the things I think my biggest degree of hope or stance in hope with Mappa is how great part two of Attack on Titan was. And primarily the reason I thought it was so good is because for the longest time, our biggest concern while we were covering Attack on Titan season two was that we were running out of episodes, but the story ain't done. So like, what
Yeah.
are we doing? But they would take their time to tell the story. Like
Hmm.
they took it, and the animation always looked premiere. The story beats were phenomenal. Like they even added certain things, moved things around to make the story as seamless and as cohesive as possible. And it was one of the strongest seasons of Attack on Titan, which a lot to be said. It's very hard that your final bow, right, which is divided in three steps now, it's still so good. You know, like it has no right to be as good as it is, right? So
Right.
they delivered a season two in the way they did, and as soon as the last episode of part two dropped, they within a week I think they announced part three. So they planned it already that no, we're
Hmm.
gonna do a string of episodes. We're gonna give time to the story. So it's one of those things like they showed a lot of good faith. They've shown a lot of good faith to the material, and it's like, and especially after Chainsaw Man, like
Yeah.
we haven't had an announcement of season two, but the idea that it hasn't been announced, it also makes me very happy because we both know that Chainsaw Man did ridiculously well.
Hmm.
It was a huge, like it took the babies home, like it was phenomenal. But they haven't announced season two. We know it's coming because the like I think the top guy at Mappa like literally got all the rights to do everything, so they're gonna keep doing Chainsaw Man. But the idea that it hasn't been announced makes me think like, no, we got to get this other stuff out of the way so we can keep adding stuff.
Right.
Look at me saying this, and then tomorrow comes out Chainsaw Man season two. But
And
yeah,
I think like the other thing about Chainsaw Man especially is the fact that they had like a different ending for each episode, which was completely unnecessary, and they didn't need to do that, but they just
yes,
went like that extra mile
yeah,
and apparently had the resources to do it, otherwise they wouldn't have done it. So
right,
I feel like that to me is another reassurance that, they know what they're doing, and they are going to try to like manage these projects well enough to where
agreed.
like, they're not going to disappoint fans by potentially putting a delay out there, having to postpone some episodes. So yeah, I feel pretty confident that they're going to be able to stay strong this year.
So, Mappa, we just want to tell you the Amateur Otaku believes in you.
You believe?
We believe. So, guys, that's enough for news. It's time to talk some anime. And we're going to talk an anime that is very anime. And this anime is so anime that it takes history and makes it anime and adds things that are not in history. And it's great. Okay, so we're going to talk Vinland Saga. That was the worst segue ever done in the history of segues. But we're going to talk Vinland Saga. I mean, this show, I remember, like, we tried, like, because one of the reasons we never covered it in the beginning, just to give you a little backstory, guys, because I know we talked about it a lot years ago, is because in our good friend Isaac of the show, which it was just me and him for the longest time, they don't have Prime Video there, so he couldn't watch it.
Oh.
And we try to do things by the book, right? But he could never watch it, and even we tried to make it work on our end, but it would be very hard, so we never got a chance to do it. But now that it's on Netflix, that almost everybody now can have access to watch this amazing show. It's about damn time that we talk Vinland Saga. Now, when I first brought this up to the team, you said, I've seen it. So, how long ago was it, and what was your first impression of this show?
That's a good question. I feel like time is just like a construct that I don't understand anymore. I watched it
It was amazing.
maybe maybe like a month or so after it initially premiered, just because I had been hearing a lot about it. But I actually initially wasn't interested in it. Because I'm like, oh, Vikings, I'm like, they're cool. I'm like, I don't know. And then I think Assassin's Creed Valhalla had come out like around that
Ah,
time as well, and I
okay.
wasn't really feeling Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I was like, I don't I think
So if I don't
this is
like
a
these
miss for Vikings.
Vikings, I'm not gonna like these.
Yeah. I'm like, it's too much Vikings, all right. I need to change it up.
Yeah.
But then I kept hearing so much about it and how it was like so good. And even in like some of the YouTubers that I watch that are just like strictly covering gameplay, they would just be mentioning the anime for like no reason. I'm like, oh my God. So that made me want to check it out. And I did have Amazon Prime Video. So I think I watched pretty much the whole season in like a few days and really enjoyed it. Um, I was definitely like I didn't love it from the very beginning of watching it because I think I was still had that Viking vendetta. But after the
There
story
was a lot of
started,
hate watching going on.
a
This this hatred of Vikings.
little bit, I was like, I don't know what it was. I was just like, Vikings right now, nah, not cool. But after I got through those first few episodes and the story really started to pick up, especially after a certain person dies, and our main character is very upset about it. I was like, oh my God,
So you're telling
this
me
is
he was very
insane.
upset.
He was I mean, I that might just be like that might not even scratch the surface of how mad Thorfinn was.
The facial features on this kid, boy.
That I would be scared if I saw that in real life.
Yes,
I don't care how old you
yes.
are. You make a face like that, he's upset. He's ready to do some horrible things. Um, but yeah, after we got past that point of the anime, which is about like 6 episodes in,
Yeah,
maybe
that's
five
like around
episodes in.
episode 6. Yeah.
Yeah. After that, I was like, oh, I gotta see how this plays out. I
Yes.
gotta see what this guy does. So yeah, Vinland Saga, if you guys haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend it. Even if you have a vendetta against Vikings like I once did, I think it will be pretty easy to get over once
We're not
you
gonna tell you
get
you're
this
gonna fall
story.
in love with Vikings,
Right.
but you'll realize why they're cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was awesome. It was really awesome experience.
So, so for me, great review by the way. Kudos. Now for me, the big thing for me is I I watched the first episode while trying to figure out how we can help Isaac watch it, and it just
Mm.
didn't work out. So I kind of lost interest because I was just frustrated at that point. So I never touched it again. And then, but now when he recently came out on Netflix, and we're talking about actually trying it again and doing it, I'm like, you know what? We have to do this. Let me try it again. And I started watching it. And the thing with Vinland Saga is that the first thing I want to say for people that haven't seen it, it's that it's a slow burn. Like it's not a show that just runs off and becomes amazing. It really, you really needed to give it, you really need to take the time to let it grow on you. But
Yeah.
by episode 5 or 6, if you're not grabbed, move on. But trust me, it got me. It got me.
Yeah.
By episode 3, I would say by episode 3 and 4, it got me entirely. And this show is Game of Thrones. Like it's anime Game of Thrones. It's intrigue, it's politics, it's war, it's awesome action and battles. It's so powerful and so interesting. The characters are very complex. Some are very simple, but at the same are so amazing. And I figure if you guys haven't seen this, we're gonna start breaking this down. We're gonna break season 1 down. If you haven't seen Vinland Saga, I bid you adieu. This is the time where you should leave. You are awesome. Stay awesome. Keep watching anime. We will see you next time. Make sure to like, subscribe, and click on the bell icon so you do not miss any episodes of the Amateur Otaku podcast. And we will see you next time. And maybe come back to this episode when you've caught up and you've actually seen Vinland Saga. But if you haven't seen it, this is where we start talking about it. So, Vinland Saga Season 1. Now, it's the fact that we get, like, when we meet Thor's, you know what I mean? Like, from the moment you see this guy, first off, when the show starts, you don't know who the main character is. You really think Thor's is, right? You think Thor is the one that's going to be the guy in the forefront because it starts with him, right? So he's a deserter from the Jum Vikings. He sets up house in Iceland, and then suddenly, in the middle of the first episode, he's no longer the main focus. It's all about the village, right? It's all about the quiet life, and then the invasion of the Jum Vikings, the invitation, everything that happens. We meet Thorfinn, which is introduced to be our main character, which I love how they use time as a storytelling tool. You know what I mean? Like to show him from little, see him how he grows into the cutest kid ever, to the one of the most deadliest warriors by the age of what, 14, 13?
Yeah.
It's
quite the transformation.
yes, and all because of the defining moment here is what happened with his dad, because when we find out that his dad used to be a Jom's Viking conqueror, right? We find out that he used to be one of the greatest warriors, but he doesn't want to fight anymore because he values life differently now. It's so interesting, right? Because you see these Vikings with all these axes, and like the idea of, I love how they play with the idea a lot on the show about you don't know what war is until you know what war is. You know what I mean?
Right.
I like the idea of war because it kind of sheds light to the whole ignorance of people when it comes to war. Like a lot of people talk about war and they think that, I'm going to be there and I'm just going to bust a cap on my enemies or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
gonna
like glorified.
Exactly. They glorify it because they think it's going to be like, that's going to make me a man, or that's going to make me the king when I come back home, or whatever. But they don't know what war is because they don't know what war is.
Right.
And then you have these people, when the Vikings get to the village and you see their faces and how they react to everybody else, it's like, these are not normal men. These are men that know what it is to take someone else's life. And you see the difference in character. Like when you see like some of the young kids that were like, oh, we're going to go to war with Thor or whatever. And they like bump into one of the Vikings, and suddenly you see how different they are. Like I
Mhm.
love that imagery,
And
right?
I think like the other part about it is the fact that when they're telling these stories about like, like going out to like England or to like when they first came to Iceland and like going to these different locations and actually fighting in these battles, they don't really like get into the nitty-gritty of like, like I like chopped this guy's head off and like
Right,
blood went everywhere and it was disgusting, blah blah.
right.
Like they're just trying to tell like their kids or like people in the village just like stories of their life, and they don't want
It's
to
the
make it like,
adventure, right? It's
yeah,
the
the
wonder of
adventure.
it, right?
They don't want to make it like horrific or gruesome or anything. So all these guys just grew up with this idea of like, oh wow, it'd be so fun to go out to war. It's like an adventure. You get to kill people and like you get to feel like a hero and like a really strong man or whatever it is. So like to have the other Jans Vikings under like Floki arrive to Iceland and to see like that stark difference and to see like, oh, like these guys aren't like happy. They don't seem like, they're having the time of their lives or anything. Um, to see that comparison is really interesting and kind of it doesn't really dawn on everybody, I don't think, but it definitely kind of like shakes people at first. Like, what's up with these guys? Like,
Yeah,
why
they
why are they
don't
like
look
this?
right. And I love the idea of stories, right? Of I love the idea of we all know that one old guy that sits on his porch and just has stories for everybody. You know what I mean? If you're willing to
Hmm.
sit down, he'll tell you a story. Like I love the character of Leif, right? Because we all know Leif. We all know a Leif, right? And someone that speaks the wonders of the world, but also has seen the worst of the world.
Hmm.
But he wants you to know that the world is wonderful still. Like I like that sense of idea. And I also find it hilarious how the kids kind of call him out when he's like talking bullshit.
Yeah.
That's one of the best moments of the first episode. But so when Thor's, we know that the turning point is when, well, not him yet. The turning point is when Thor's is called back to battle. He has a plan, but of course Floki has others because apparently Thorfinn is the son of Thor's, the troll of Yam, which is like the
Mhm.
greatest warrior ever. And we need this guy, Askeladd, the one that actually duels Thor's, and whether it's fair or not fair, he defeats him in the duel. But Thor's is so badass that he dies standing up. Like
Mhm.
that's just like okay, like, that was epic, but it was so heartbreaking, right?
Yeah.
And all because he says the words, "A true warrior does not need a sword." And it's like, how was it when? What was that moment? Like before we go into more into the character of Askeladd, right? When Thor's dies, and he dies because he chooses not to fight anymore. He chooses not to kill. He chooses to value life. He dies, and Thorfinn is all like, "Dad, why are you so stupid? Like, why did you do this? How does this make sense?" What was your reaction to that? Because he just lost his dad, right? But at the
Right,
same
yeah.
time, he's saying like, "You were stupid. You could have taken them down. Why didn't you?"
Honestly, I was like, when Askeladd gives the signal to like fire on Thor's, I was kind of surprised because um I don't know. It's like that was that the code of honor, to respect that, to let them move on. And of course, Askeladd was right. He did have a job to do, so it's like code be damned. I'm gonna do what I have to do to, keep it pushing, keep it moving. So to see like Thor's get like struck with all of these arrows, and he's just like standing there bleeding out, having all sorts of medical conditions, and then Thorfinn like runs to him and he's like, Dad, like, why didn't you like take these guys down? Because clearly he could have if he wanted to. It just kind of showed me like the guy that I guess Thor's is, like he really going to war and then having like this kid like Yulva waiting for him at home and thinking of that and that like fear creeping in his heart, it really changed him. And he doesn't want to have that same he doesn't want to cause that kind of not necessarily like fear to live, but that kind of pain on anyone else to the point where he was
Right.
willing to die for it.
Right.
And to see that, well, we won't know until the next episode, but to see how this has affected like Thorfinn to where it feels like he kind of moves in the opposite direction, or it's like, oh, okay, so it's like, one for all for one. If you're messing with me, like I just have to take you out.
Right.
That's just gonna bottom line. Um, it's kind of crazy to see like that dynamic. It's kind of like what you were saying, similar to Game of Thrones with like House of Dragon. Like there's like this one really noble guy who's always trying to do the right thing and try and make sure everybody's happy. And then pretty much everybody else around him is like, yeah, no, I'm just looking out for me. Like the
Yes.
whatever
Yes.
meets my end game, like my end goal, like that's what I'm gonna do. So to see that, but eventually like Thor's does kind of regain some of that humanity later. I think it created like a great kind of like character arc for, or sorry, not Thor's, Thorfinn.
Yeah.
I think it created like a great character arc for like Thorfinn to go down because you immediately see like, oh, he's going to be like the vengeful like I
Yeah.
must avenge my father type character.
Yes.
Which I feel like we've seen a lot in the recent past, but what makes this different is not only our connection to Thor's before seeing his demise in such a awful way, but to see that Thorfinn doesn't like separate from Askeladd's crew, but he actually like joins them and kind of becomes one of their
That
brothers
was
in a way.
yes.
That was
Yes.
really crazy to me. That was really cool.
Yeah. Like this guy, to say that he has a silver tongue is doesn't even scratch the surface. Like this is the guy that gave me all the Game of Thrones vibe. Askeladd, son of Olaf, like Olaf, like from Frozen, the one that was looking for Samantha. No, but Askeladd, like son of Ashes, right? This character is so phenomenal, so phenomenally written, so
Mhm.
complex. It's like one of those characters that you never know what he's thinking. You'll never be able to. And every time he speaks, you don't know if it's bullshit or if it's true, but there's always a little bit of truth, but there's always a little bit of bullshit sprinkled in. Like he is the ultimate manipulator, and I love how he literally spent all the time just not necessarily. It was a mixture of playing with Thorfinn, and but at the same time looking out for him. Like you could tell that he was looking out for him because of Thor's.
Mhm.
Because whether we want to accept it or not, he recognized Thor's as a true warrior, and also when you look into the fact that you find out further on in the show, right? You find out that he hates the Danish, like severely, right?
Mhm.
We also kind of tell from there that that's why he reacted to Thor's the way he did, because he respected Thor's. And I think he even says it at some point that Thor's was someone that he would grow to respect. And because of that, he kind of took Thorfinn under his wing by kind of playing around with the idea. By the fact that he had to duel Thorfinn multiple times because Thorfinn kept challenging him, but he kept winning. That was just brilliant because it also goes back to the idea of Thorfinn is a kid. Like I think when you see him as the hardened warrior that Thorfinn becomes, which by the way, his fighting style, I love how it's super different than everybody else's.
Mhm.
And I love how you get that character arc as he's learning how to use the daggers and using his size to his advantage and like all those little things. I loved it because it made Thorfinn feel so different from everybody else, and also the fact that he was within the crew but it wasn't part of the crew, and every time and he would always talk to anybody normal, but as soon as Askeladd said anything, he would be a little bitch. Like it was just great. But the idea that every time he would fight with Askeladd, because he would go into rage mode, right? Those are the moments where you would find out that Thorfinn is still a kid. You know what I mean? Like he was this cold-hearted warrior that can literally take anyone down in the battlefield, right?
Right.
But it was in these moments where he would duel Askeladd that because he has all these emotions and they keep coming up, and of course Askeladd's there to just poke the bear, right?
Yep.
Um, that's when you find out he's still a kid. And I found that fascinating. I found their relationship fascinating, especially going towards the end because I do want to break down the ending, but I figure we talk about the characters and then we go there. Did you have a favorite Thorfinn Askeladd reaction or any thoughts on that relationship?
Um, I really like the way that it played out, and it's like I don't know. I think a very unique relationship that I haven't seen too much inside of anime, where it's like I was saying, vengeful protagonists we have a plethora of. You will never run out of those. There are
Never.
probably people writing those stories to this day. But
Yes.
to see like the person that was wronged and like the person that they have made their target decide to like be within the same space for an extended period of time. Like for Thorfinn, it was like from his youth up until like adolescence, like slash teenage years, and to see them form a bond that was almost uh father son, except like a very twisted bad father son
Yes.
relationship. That
Yes.
was super interesting and not something that I don't think I've seen before. So yeah, I really liked it, and I think that I don't know. I think it's kind of changed um Thorfinn in a way that he did not expect, because he didn't especially towards the end of the show, he did not think that, or the first season I should say, he didn't think that he had all these emotions for him.
Yeah.
But we do see that like later on, like they both developed this relationship unknowingly, and
Right.
now are like very closely bonded together.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just a great another great piece of storytelling. And I was watching a recap video earlier, and for them to say that this was like the prologue to Vinland Saga was season one, I was like, oh my god.
No, trust
So
me, that actually blew my mind because for I don't know if anybody paid attention, but throughout Vinland Saga season one, none of the episodes have titles
mm,
except episode 24, which is titled "End of Prologue."
yep.
So they pulled a Chainsaw Man, and this is not a spoiler, but like the first arc of Chainsaw Man is it's almost 92 chapters long. And at the end of that arc, you literally get end of first arc. And I'm like, wait, all of this was one arc? What? So, and just to give you an idea, season one only covered like 35 chapters. So
Oh
we're probably
wow.
not going to finish the first arc of Chainsaw Man for another 2 seasons. But yeah,
Wow.
that was
I
very
think there need to be like
surprising.
sub arcs now, because that's a lot.
Oh no, no, no! Attack on Titan's already doing it, and I'm already mad. So, so no, give me the whole thing. But no, yeah, like, uh, yeah, the way they organize it, but I also like it because it creates a lot more connectivity with the show, but also because it actually helps the way the season ends. That type of title works because there's a lot of things that happen in the season finale, which I think that'll be the last part of the conversation. I kind of just want us to go through the characters. Uh, I love Bjorn. I love how he's the middleman between the crew and Askeladd. And I
Hmm.
love like he's kind of like the only one that really knows Askeladd enough to know that he cares about Thorfinn, even though Askeladd will never admit that.
Right. Yeah.
And I do love the history Easter egg of the Berserker mushroom.
Hmm.
By the way, like it's like kudos to Super Mario Brothers. Like Next time you make Super Mario Bros., we need a berserker mushroom, and yes, it can be eaten by others except Wario. Um, leave Wario with the onions. But yeah, like the idea of the berserker mushroom, like coming out of God of War Ragnarok when you fight the berserkers, that was like, which were actual figures in history. That was super cool. So Bjorn was a great character. The way that he went down was very heartbreaking and very interesting. Um, so yeah, so he was great. Any thoughts on Bjorn?
I really like Bjorn. I like his first introduction, like, him going against Thor, so I'm immediately like, oh, you're on the wrong team. I don't like you. But then, like, when we start to get to know him a little bit more, because, Thorfinn's with, like, Askeladd's crew, and we start to see, like, not only him acting as, like, a mediator, I guess, between Askeladd and the rest of the crew, but just his, I guess, kind of like having a role of like leadership among that group was also really cool to see. So it was sad to see him go out, but I guess it's good that he went to Valhalla in the end.
Yes, yes. Um, uh, Mike Thomas comes out of here and goes, Mario time. I think he liked that mushroom reference.
See, Mario needs to be in this season. This season of
Yes,
Vinland
yes, he
Saga, we
does.
need
Yes, he does.
Mario.
So, so now what we need to do is with Bjorn, the way he goes, and the way he goes, the idea of Valhalla, right? Like when you meet these guys, all they do is go pillaging village to village. That's really all they do.
Hmm.
They go village to village. They kill anybody that they see. They take all their belongings. I mean, these guys, this Askeladd's crew, they're a bunch of horrible people, and apparently a lot of Viking crews would do this, or at
Hmm.
least that's what we're led to believe based on the presentation, right? Like they're a bunch of horrible people. These are not good people. But then again, those are the characters that we're following,
Right.
which which again kind of sets the stage for like if everybody's horrible, then we accept that and then we see different kinds of character work, right? Because you know their mentalities and stuff like that. Which is
Right.
why I find the shifts in season 2 so interesting because they're going in a different direction.
Hmm.
But it makes me think like what if all these people do this because that's what they were taught? Like what if this was just the Viking way because that's just tradition, and it's not like they literally are doing they enjoy it, but then again their culture and their traditions inform all these actions as good actions because
Right.
they're so it's not like so it goes into the whole interesting topic of conversation where like is it Hobart doing yes, but they believe they're doing the right thing, which
Hmm.
is the whole religion debate or belief debate or science debate or whatever. Everybody's doing what they think. Everyone's hearing their own story, which I
Hmm.
think is fascinating, especially when they introduce new characters like Canute. Because what I was not expecting was that after those first episodes, I think it's up to episode 11 to 12 that we get the growth of Thorfinn. It's literally like the legend of Thorfinn, right? Like
Hmm.
Thorfinn becoming the warrior that is now trusted, like almost that Askeladd trusts him as much as he would trust Bjorn, right?
Hmm.
He becomes. Let me put the picture here. He becomes level 50 Thorfinn, which is the one at the end.
Max stats.
Yes, max stats for the current chapter. It's like don't you hate it in the game where you're at max level and it's because you haven't gone further into the story so they don't raise the cap again to like I hate Destiny. Um, everybody reset no. But when they introduce Canute and the English and Christianity as another view of life, I like I like the conversation of clashing belief systems and because these belief systems are what drive these people just like the desire to reach Valhalla drives all these Vikings to kill all these people and constantly look for battle like we're
Hmm.
going to see further on with Thorkel, right? The same thing with Canute is or at least until the evolution of Canute, right? Because we got to talk about that. It's all about like life is sacred. We're meant to not fight and protect God's people and all that stuff, or save them from themselves. So I find that very interesting, and that was a curveball for me. I wasn't expecting that.
No, yeah, it's definitely like I remember him being introduced to the story and I was like, ah man, he's just gonna slow everything down. He doesn't want to fight. He wants
Yep,
everybody to like sit down, have tea or whatever.
yep.
Um,
Every time we
but
see him, he has this mask on. So and I mean, is this guy? For a moment, I was like, is this Thorfinn's sister like hiding or whatever? No, it's a dude.
yeah. And he actually takes advantage of his like long hair later on when like somebody tries to assassinate him, which is pretty smart.
Yep,
But I definitely do grow to like this character just because like once again, he's not like a stagnated character. He
yep,
does grow and like I guess opens his eyes to the possibilities of like, even if I have to make some sacrifices, they can be for the greater good, or at least in his mind.
yep,
So like trying to push that narrative and I guess like awakening or like maturing or
yep.
growing. That was also really interesting. And just like the character work in Vinland Saga in general is just great. Like they
Yes.
really do a good job of helping like these characters continue to evolve in like interesting ways, even if like they don't have like the most interesting backstory to begin with.
Right. No, and this one in particular, it's the most interesting, right? Because in the beginning, when we introduce him, you introduce Willibald, which is the priest. You introduce Ragnar, and how he's being like a little baby and all that little things, right? Um,
Hmm.
the whole thing about him is not only that he's this devout Christian or strong with these beliefs, but after the death of Ragnar and Thorkill arriving to capture him and all that, this 180 of the idea, because he comes again, how it also shows how much your life experiences can influence your beliefs, right? Because he's been mistreated by his dad all his life.
Hmm.
So he's got to a point where I cannot accept that a heavenly father really loves me. The fact that he sits up there and just watches everything and I'm done. I will never for him. And then becomes this person that just he sheds everything and becomes someone new. But also it's a different type of belief system because he's not just gonna fight people. He's not gonna be he's creating his own way. Which again, it's like you could say it's the whole Naruto following or creating your own ninja way, kind of. But he's creating his own way, just like Thorfinn is creating his own way. Just like Askeladd, as we find out, is actually when we find out his whole backstory in Wales and all that, like he's creating his own path as well. So yeah, his the twist with him is so interesting, and I love the fact that we kind of get glimpses that we're gonna see more of Canute in season two.
Hmm.
So I'm excited. More Canute, no more Valkyrie hat, just Canute.
Yeah, I'm excited to see like how he leads like the Danish army forward, I guess. How
Yep,
that progresses.
yep. Now we got to talk about maybe the funnest guy in this show, and we got to talk about Mr. Thorkel because this guy is amazing. I
Always
love
has
this
a
guy.
smile on his face.
Yes, yes. Like he is the happiest guy I've ever seen that just lost three fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and also I love this is what I love about great animes, right? Which is it's a common shonen trope, right? But I like it because it brings a lot of dimension and complexity, and it brings another level of complexity to the characters. It's like apart from Askeladd, which again by design, Thorfinn will not beat Askeladd. Like that's just by design, right? He is the first person to actually beat Thorfinn. So I like how that changes everything again. You know what I mean? Like the story was going up to a point where I don't know Thorfinn is like this unstoppable force, and Askeladd is just he needs to make Askeladd happy or whatever.
Hmm.
Like whenever he said, "Bring me the head of a general" or whatever, right? Like I thought Thorfinn was not, but the fact that he did it so seamlessly is like, okay, we got an OP main character now, so we got to figure something out. So I love how the wrench to all this was Thorkel. Did you catch that this was the same guy from the first episode? Because I didn't. It took me a while to go like, oh shit, that's this guy.
I believe I did, he has, even though like I think he looks very similar to some of the other characters in terms of like the clothing and stuff, like that smile, his expressions, the way he carries himself, that I was like, "Oh yeah, I saw this guy before." There's no way I would have mistaken for anybody else.
Yeah. So to me, is like this guy was just awesome, and the battle style, how out of the box, and how over the top he was in everything, even in his battles. I love his first encounter with Thorfinn. I love his connection with with um with Thor's, and I think his connection with Thor's was what surprised me the most. Not only because he knew Thor's, that was his practically his brother-in-law first removed or something.
Hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so that was like his uncle. So that was like, what? And the fact that Thor's knocked him out with a punch, like, Thor was next level. Like this guy that nobody's been able to take down, Thor's took down, and it kind of goes reinforms that whole thing about a true warrior doesn't need a weapon, right? Like
Hmm.
he was like an avatar level status. You know, he was just beyond everybody else. And the idea that we haven't seen someone at Thor's level yet was also another thing that was like baffling to me. Which again goes to makes you think like, okay, is Thorfinn gonna get there? Like, is this what we're trying to do? Like Thorfinn's gonna get to that Thor level of strength, but at the same time of wanting peace and not raising a sword and blah blah blah. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
Thorkill was a nice mix. Yeah.
It definitely, for me, it kind of makes me think of like just you mentioning, like Thor's being like this way as like this really like big force to be reckoned with. And like kind of comparing him to Thorfinn, where like he is definitely a force to be reckoned with, but not nearly as like powerful or impactful as Thor's was. It kind of makes me think of like my hero with, Deku always looking up to All Might and trying to like adapt his style because it's like, this is the way how you become like super powerful or like utilize his power. And like Deku finding his own way to use the power and what works for him is ultimately what grants him like the greatest abilities and what pushes him to go beyond All Might, or at least that's what the show keeps telling me, so I'm gonna believe that it's true. I don't read the manga, so I have no idea, but I assume he will surpass All Might. And so to see like Thorfinn is also kind of going through the same thing where he wants to be big and strong like his dad, but he's not built like his dad. He has different attributes than him. So he's having to adjust and really like find his own style and what works for him. I think that's also been really interesting. And I think he will find like that power that Thor's had in some other way that's unique to him. So that's going to be a cool journey to see.
I was muted. Agreed. 100% agreed. I mean, this season was great, and we have to talk about that ending. Like the way the season ends. Like again, we talked about Game of Thrones, right? Like you do
Hmm.
not get more Game of Thrones. Like this was one. This was some red wedding shit. Like this was like this was something else, and
Hmm.
I was not expecting this from this show. It really took me by surprise the way this show closed. Um, so apparently Askeladd reveals everything to Canute, and when like after the final bout with Bjorn, right, where he gives Bjorn his death in battle,
Hmm.
he fights Thorfinn one more time and defeats him, and literally opens up to everybody. It was Canute was there, Torkel was there, and Thorfinn. Like, I hate the Danes and all that stuff, but he gets to the whole spiel about his history, about why Thorfinn will never beat him. And I love because that story kind of starts making Thorfinn's gears start to turn, like, maybe I'll never beat him and maybe I don't need to. Like, maybe he's starting to let go of this whole vengeance plot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he ends up in jail and Leif is there. So the idea that Leif finally finds him for the second time, because we know it happened once, right? And now possibly he's going home. There's this brief moment where he might go home. But when he ran away from the boat because of the commotion, what was your reaction?
At first I was a little like I knew it was too good to be true. Like, there's no way everything was like, oh, it wouldn't have necessarily been a happy ending, but he would have gone home to his family, which is, something that I think everybody wants at the end of the day. So to see that he kind of like threw this chance to go back home to his sister and his mother and like his village to see what was happening with Askeladd, because he really like I was saying, like, he built that bond with him and he really deeply cared about him, and he wanted to make sure, well, first verify what was going on, but also to make sure that everyone was okay. I like that. That makes a lot of sense. And I think, it kind of puts like a nice cherry on top of like this whole journey that they built together. Because it really shows like at the end of the day, like he really did kind of let go of like this vengeful spirit that he had for Askeladd, and like having to like take his life because he killed his father. And I think he's like gained a greater understanding about, like,
Well, he still had a
why
little
he
bit of
did what
that.
he did.
Yeah. He still had a little bit.
He definitely did. Like, you're never gonna forgive somebody that kills one of your parents, but
Yeah.
now spending so much time with him, he definitely has like gained a little bit more of his perspective.
Yeah.
So for him to like run back and see Askeladd like mortally wounded, I'm like, oh my god, he lost another dad. Like, dang, man.
Yeah.
Just
No,
not in the cards for him to have a good father figure.
But who's to say he didn't, right? In this horrible world that he lives, right? But what was surprising is how that happened, right? Like, so we know we've been waiting on this meeting with the King of Denmark, which we know has been plotting to assassinate Canute to give the kingdom to his other son Harold, right?
Mm.
And the idea that Askeladd is brought forth, they kind of figure out the whole thing that he has something with whales, some connection with whales. Like, this was so intricate and so interesting stuff. And then when he whispers in Askeladd's ear that he says, I'll have you make a decision. If you go to Wales as an envoy, you can either go to Wales as an envoy or you can protect Canute. Choose. And at that moment, and I love the whole thing about Askeladd going freaking crazy. He murders the freaking king in front of everybody and then just starts killing people left and right. And the idea that for a second you think that he just went mad, but then everybody goes like, no, he didn't go mad. Askeladd was given a choice. And he's the smartest. He will always be the smartest guy in the room. So he made the choice where he can pick both things. He can save Wales and save Canute at the cost of his life. But my biggest thing, which to me was the biggest mic drop and just made that whole scene, what? Was gonna go, Askeladd was the name that my father's friends or my people gave me. But my given name by my mother is Lucius Artorius Castus. And I was like, holy shit. Motherfucker pulled a gladiator. Like in the movie Gladiator when he goes, my name is Maximus Decimus Aurelius. Like, he pulled the whole thing, like, he pulled a Russell Crowe.
Mm-hmm.
Respect. Yeah, that moment to me was like so great. And then Canute kills him, but of course, and it shows how smart Canute is because Canute picked up on everything. Thorkel, even with this big smile that he has, he caught on everything and said, "No, Canute, the king needs. You need to. If you're gonna be the king, you have to take him down." And when that happens, that's when Thorfinn,
Yep,
you
that's when
know,
he walks in the room.
yep, yep. But what I loved the most about the season finale more than anything was the fact that they tied off pretty much all the loose ends. They maybe leave like one or two, but they literally closed the arc. And like, no, we're not gonna keep seeing the vengeful Thorfinn for another 90 episodes. No.
Hmm.
This chapter is done. These feelings are done.
Yep.
And I love how his Askeladd that gives Thorfinn the new direction, right? And goes like, have you ever thought what you're going to do with your life after you kill me? Like, when he drops that question, that's the type of line that I go like, Askeladd cares about this kid. Like that, you know what I mean? Like that's the moment. And Thorfinn goes like, what? Like he doesn't understand because like why is he asking me what my future life is going to be? He's not going to be there. But like you don't say that to someone you don't care about.
Hmm.
You know, and I love how not only did we close the show with that, we also gave us a new direction for the characters, and we don't know where this character is going to go now. But I love how we can take season one, put it aside, and when we go, I love the idea of going into season two fresh,
Yeah.
into something new. Like most animes, I mean, I don't want to say that it still happens a lot, but in a lot of animes, I would say early 2000s, early 2010s, the night Dragon Ball Z was every one of them. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I like this guy. I don't know why I keep bringing him
Mhm.
up. But like I would say Dragon Ball Z was very notorious. Like it would take multiple seasons to tell one arc.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it took 5 episodes just to do a spirit bomb against Frieza. You know what I mean? Like it took a couple episodes for Goku to run all the way to Snake Way to go to Earth. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It took a
It
while.
took a whole season to finish the freaking tournament of power. That was supposed to be like maybe 20 minutes.
Yep. So
So,
it took a minute. So the idea that they were able to put a pin in this, close it out, move on, and now we're gonna see our characters in a new light as we go into season two, right? Um, when you found out that season two is coming, right? What were your expectations of it? Like before you started watching it?
um, I don't think I really had any expectations. It had honestly been quite a while since I had watched season one. I'm like, oh yeah, that was a really great show. So I'm definitely gonna tune in for season two. But I think to your point, like them like kind of tying off all the loose ends at the end of the season so that this season can start with like a fresh slate. We don't have to like revisit things from the previous season and like try and handle all of that and things start to get messy. Like this season, it starts off like really interesting because we don't even like start with Thorfinn as our protagonist for like the
Yep.
first couple of episodes. That was maybe like, whoa, did I do I need to go back to the first season? Like, what did I miss? Like, who is this
Right.
guy?
Right.
But I feel like that's a sign of great storytelling, and it's
Yep.
unfortunately something that I feel like I don't see very often, just because everybody's kind of chasing this like we need a franchise, so let's plant all of these things into this movie or into this season that we won't cover in this season. But if we get
Yeah.
another, yeah, if we get like another
Yeah.
go at this, we'll come back to it. And it's not like I don't want to see like those things continue to succeed or anything like that. But there's something about just like telling a concise story where I want to come back for more. Like I want to see what the writers or what the animators or whoever it is, what story they can come up with for these characters next, rather
Yep.
than, oh, that was cool, but we still don't know about this, this, and this. So hopefully I find out if this gets greenlit. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I think I kind of liked going into Vinland Saga season 2 with somewhat of a fresh slate, where it's like, we're starting over, not completely, but starting in a new environment. We have Thorfinn, where he's like at an older age, but also past this vengeful arc, so becoming another, like having another evolution within his character that we get to watch. But also seeing how he builds new relationships, since, like, a lot of the people that he's like grown up with to this point are either like removed from his life, or unfortunately pass, like Askeladd, or like his father Thor's. So I
Yeah.
was really excited to go into this, and definitely walked into it with an open mind, no baggage. Yeah.
That's the word. That's what I liked the most about it. There was no baggage. I mean, we know Thorfinn's messed up. Like, we know,
Hmm.
but the idea that we can tell that it's been a couple of years. It's an older Thorfinn, right?
Right.
We meet his new friend, Einar,
Hmm.
right? Which apparently gets into trouble because he's a loudmouth and, has the hots for another slave there. But the idea that Thorfinn's a slave, that was his punishment for attacking Prince Canute, because he
Hmm.
he does retaliate against Prince Canute because Prince Canute takes down Askeladd. So what I love most about where we're going right now is that because it's different completely to Thorfinn, and when we see this scene, right, where he's just being slashed and slashed and slashed in season 2, which I think is the most pertinent scene for us to get a sense of where Thorfinn is, right?
Hmm.
Is that he doesn't see a point in life anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Not only because he never got a chance to kill Askeladd, but also because he's never found anything worth living for.
Right.
Because of the horrible things that he's done with the Vikings, because of the horrible things that he's done as he been part of Askeladd's crew, it's like we don't know what to do. It's I love this direction and I can't wait to see more. I don't know. Should we talk more about season 2? But I think that's like the core of it, right? It's he's a slave now. Not a lot happens in the 3 episodes more
Hmm.
than you really getting acquainted into what's going on with Thorfinn right now and his
Yeah.
new character and where his state of mind is.
Hmm.
So I more than anything want to see where this goes. What I did find heartwarming was that Leif is still trying to find him.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like, everybody needs somebody like Leif, because
Yep.
he's very committed to that family.
Yep.
He wants to make sure that Thorfinn is okay, and he's like willing to make multiple trips, like over and over, like, you sure you don't want to come home? You sure? All right,
Yep.
I'll see you in like maybe a year or so.
Yep.
And then, like, he goes back on his journey, whatever it is, like maybe selling stuff or just like navigating the seas.
Yep.
But yeah, with this season, it's definitely going to be I feel like the big thing right now, especially just being 3 episodes in, is just like, how is Thorfinn going to find his purpose again? And like, will that purpose bring him joy? Because like, I never really, I don't know, I guess it never really sunk in for me that Thorfinn like didn't have a life that I guess he feels is worth living, or things that he really enjoyed. Just because as a kid, like, he was so lighthearted and he enjoyed like playing like war with his friends. So I was thinking, and also him like imagining what it would be like to travel the seas.
Right.
So I was thinking like maybe some of that would be in the back of his head, but no, he's just a completely different person, and like weighed down by, I guess, like, the sins of like the things that he's done with Askeladd's
He has
crew.
PTSD, right? Like you get that
Yeah.
scene where he's like screaming because of the nightmares, right? So it's like the trauma is heavy. It's so heavy on his soul that he can't really enjoy anything. So I find that super interesting.
Yeah, I feel bad for him. I really do. And I'm hoping that like him and Anar will be able to get closer in some way, cuz it seems like, Anar up until the point where he was enslaved was having a good life, and had like
Yeah.
great relationships with his mom and his sister.
And it was a lot
So,
more recent, right? So he can kind of
yeah.
like show
And
that
he's
he has
still
some kind of hope. Yeah.
right, and he still like has respect for himself, and is not
Yeah.
just going to like be willing to be treated any kind of way. So I'm hoping as he like works with Anar and spends more time with him, like some of that will rub off on Thorfinn and he'll kind of realize like, yeah, like this isn't a way to live. This isn't like a way that I want to continue going on. And I don't know if it will be the like I guess the wheat crops or whatever crops they're trying to plant. I don't know if it'll be like that experience of being able to buy his freedom and then like figuring out where to go from there. I don't know if that will be the thing that kind of helps him like wake up to once again returning to ask that question, like what are you going to do after this? Like what are you going to do once like we have this field figured out and you have your freedom back? Like have you thought about that? So I think Askeladd's words will definitely come back to haunt him later on in the season.
Yeah. I don't know. This is great. I kind of see there's going to be something with that leader of that gang that we saw at the end of season 3 because he looked very important. So let's see what happens. But yeah, season 2 of Vinland Saga looks like it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to see it. A new episode drops every Monday. So keep watching Vinland Saga. And if you want us to come back and do a season review of season 2, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the comments. And we'll come back and revisit it and do a full review when the season's out. Do you got anything else, Jamie?
No, everybody go watch Vinland Saga, especially, if your favorite anime or like one anime that you're looking forward to got delayed or postponed, like we were talking about earlier in the show. This is definitely a good replacement.
Yes. So, Jamie, we've done the thing. We've done a great show. Thank you guys for joining us at the Amateur Otaku Podcast. If you love what we do here, make sure you click on the like button, subscribe, click on the bell for notifications so you do not miss any single episode of the Amateur Otaku Podcast. If you'd rather to listen to us on the go, find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever podcasts are found. You can find the Amateur Otaku Podcast. Jamie, where can people find you? People want to find you doing your thing.
Well, you can find me on Twitter and on YouTube at swiper-art. And I also do gaming related things on Twitch, twitch.tv/swiper_prime. So yeah.
Awesome. You can find me at the Scarlet Fan 52 on Twitter. And you can find me at the Shatter After as well, talking movies, interviewing great creators, and we're talking HBO's The Last of Us every single Tuesday night at 8:30 on our show, Beyond the Clickers. So make sure you don't miss any of that. Make sure you look us up, 8:30. Join in the comment section, tell us your thought of the episode. And you can find me here at the Amateur Otaku Podcast. You can find the pod at the Amateur Otaku. Anything you want us to cover, let us know in the comments below. Let us know on Twitter if there's anything you want us to cover, and we will cover on the show. We cover a new show every single week. So we don't know what we're covering next week, but don't worry, stay tuned. We'll announce it. But we'll see you next Thursday night talking more anime in the Amateur Otaku. Have it awesome, guys. Stay awesome. Peace.
See ya.